Okay. Did you use balsamic or whatever?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the penultimate class of CS 410J, 510J, Advanced Programming with Java for the summer. So we're almost done. And so this will be the final sort of this style of class where I do most of the talking, but you do a lot of talking also. Next week will be the final exam, and then it'll be done. So anyway, tonight I want to answer your questions about the Project 5, the GWT stuff. The community has been oddly quiet, and so I can't tell if that means everybody's all set or I'm waiting for class because I don't know how to express my question in words, which is totally cool. So I expect what we'll do for most of tonight is talk about GWT. Also want to be sure to cover what's going to be on the final exam. And then if we have some time, we still have that pair programming from a couple weeks ago. We didn't have a chance to continue it last week, the Minesweeper kata. It might be fun to get back to that too. We'll see how it goes. Okay. I've got a couple things that I want to talk about with Project 5, but I want to let you guys start out with the questions that you have. So, what can I tell you about GWT, Project 5? How are people doing? What are people curious about? Yes, Alex.
So for PrettyPrinter functionality, can we just use like the alerter, not just like the separate class that leverages the functionality for PrettyPrinting, but just you getting the response from the server and you just using the alerter to print the response of the message?
So, yes. So I'll say to that, if you want to do the pretty printing on the server side and send the string back to the client, I'm not going to know. That's fine. It's not really the intent, but as I'll show you, it's actually not possible to use a pretty printer on the client side until I fix a bug. And I want to fix that bug for you tonight, so you can do that. Putting the pretty print in the alert, not so pretty. It was like some of the error messages, some of the stack traces and stuff, just put this big wall of text up there in the alerter. You might lose a little bit of credit for that. So it would be much better to display the pretty printer inside something that's got like a scroll bar or a text area or just like a big label or something like that. Doing the pretty printing on the server side and sending the string back over, yep, that's okay. Good question. Yeah.
Unit tests that cover both server side and client side.
Yeah.
Like it's a little bit. There seems to be like 3 different environments you can work in GWT, and it's hard to figure out which one to use for unit testing.
Dry erase. Okay, right. So like some things we want to talk about. So GWT unit/integration testing. I know there was, I said I'd talk about GWT debugging, and it's really in-browser debugging. Client-side debugging is probably more accurate to say. Client-side debugging. So yeah, I can go into detail about those. And then you had a question about serialization, right? Yeah, so GWT serialization and serialization when you've got problems. Well, when it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work.
Will you talk a little bit about why a constructor with no parameters is necessary?
Oh, yeah. Y0 arg constructor, yeah. Good.
You mentioned maybe talking about UI binder.
UI binder, right? Yeah. UI binder. Nice. Any other GWT topics or things? Is everybody able to at least get like the archetype? Create the project from the archetype, get things up and running, can run GWT, can do things like mess with the code a little bit, reload, and see. Okay, good. So looks like the environment's working for everybody. You got a question, yeah?
Quick question. When I start up my browser, I don't get the browser tab in the toolbox. And I don't know if that was covered.
Browser tab in the tool.
You know how you've got the development mode tab, the Jetty tab, and then you've got the Chrome tab.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So is there a plugin for Chrome that
Not anymore. A long time there used to be. I mean, like,
Yeah, it's like now you're in what, super dev mode. So
Yeah.
you need the plug-in.
right. Yeah, super dev mode doesn't need the plugin anymore,
So-
which actually ties into the debugging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So
mine starts out like this, but then when I start my browser, I don't get that third at the top where the browser message. Oh, you don't need
neither do I. That'd be okay. But you watched the lectures and you were given the impression that there should be. Yeah, the lectures are old. Sorry.
Okay.
I was probably using GWT 6 back then. Yeah.
Whenever it's different, I get it.
2013 was a good year for screencasts, I guess. Okay, well, it was excellent vintage, but now it's starting to get a little old. Okay.
I have a
Yeah.
question. I was trying to implement my old airline model and airline flight model onto the server and the client, but I couldn't get it to work on the client,
Okay.
which means I couldn't pass flights.
Yeah, back and forth.
The big issue was that there seemed to be issues with the date, time. format,
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so then, yeah, and I will. Oh, and I guess, right. So I guess then the other thing was pretty printing on the client side, and I think this will tie into that on client side, and then simple DateTime format. Nice. Good deal. Anything else? This is good stuff. We're gonna have fun. I'm gonna have fun. I don't know about you guys. You guys will probably find it boring. But anyway, I'll help you do your project. Okay. Oh, where to start? I will start. So let's start with pretty printing on the client side and DateTime format, because there were a bunch of questions there. Okay. There's also a bug. At office hours, I was talking to a student, and he was like, I tried to implement my PrettyPrinter on the client side, and it wouldn't compile. I'm like, what? It wouldn't compile? That's crazy. And he's like, shows me it doesn't compile. And GWT compile. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. What's wrong with your environment? And they tried in mine. It's like, it doesn't compile for me. It's like, oh, damn, I did something wrong. So let's fix that. So let me show you what I saw, because maybe some of you have seen the same thing. Oh, okay, but even so, why do I want the PrettyPrinter, or why would it make sense to have the PrettyPrinter be client-side functionality? Yeah. Less data center overnight. Well, that's a good. Yeah, that's a good call. Anything else?
Let's work for the server.
Yep. Let's work for the server. But sort of conceptually, or from a design standpoint, PrettyPrinter is all about the user. It's not about the data. It's about how the data is displayed to the user, right? So sort of in my mind, it says, oh, it ought to be something client side. Okay. So I was like, okay. Here in my. Actually, I've got a whole bunch of changes I haven't checked in. What have I changed? We probably did a whole bunch of stuff here. Oh, this is like me implementing. Oh yeah, the airline name. Okay. So I'm going to just check a whole bunch of stuff in first. I'm not going to check in my PrettyPrinter though. And then, right, not PrettyPrinter, but all sorts of other stuff. Yeah, so this is like pass the name of the airline to the airline service. Pass the name of the airline obtained from the UI to the airline service. We did that last time, so I'm going to commit all that stuff. Yay, okay. Okay, now I'm going to add the PrettyPrint functionality. No. Keep those in default. Okay. So now if I look at my so now I'm going to change it. I'm going to have my airline show an airline. Okay, good. So now I just print like the toString or something here. What do I do again? I don't remember. It's been a long week. Airline GWT is my UI. When I call show airline on success, okay, great. I just do all of this stuff, and I set the text to be the string. Well, okay, now I want to put all of this into my PrettyPrinter. Okay, good deal. So I'm going to create a PrettyPrinter. I have a PrettyPrinter class, and in the dump method, I am going to have that the stuff that's currently right here. So let's see here. How about this? I'm just going to say PrettyPrinter. Here's what I'm going to say. PrettyPrint airline. I'm just going to put all this stuff in methods. I think this will be easier to read. It'll be more clear about what's going on where. Okay. And now I'm going to say PrettyPrinter. Actually, which? Yeah, that's the right one. It's client side. Equals new PrettyPrinter. And I'm going to say the following. I'm going to say pretty.dump the airline. Oops, it has Java I/O exception. I'm going to surround that with a try catch. And I think I have a method here someplace which prints out an error. I must, because I have like 17 buttons that print errors, right? Alert on exception. Yay, it takes an exception. Good. So I'll throw it up alert. Okay. And now I want to say airline pretty text. Oops. This is airline pretty text thing. That's a text area. Oh, come on, I don't have access to that down there. Airline pretty text. What is this up here? Oh, it's passed in there. Okay, that's cool. And I can just add that as a second parameter. And I'll say airline pretty text.setText. And then I'll need to get the the stuff that was dumped from the PrettyPrinter. And so, okay, I can do that. So here's something else. Okay, so I might mention this to a couple of people, maybe on the community, maybe in office hours. I don't know if I talked about it here. So for things like your PrettyPrinter, I'll ask you guys. So the PrettyPrinter had to handle two output locations. It had to PrettyPrint a standard out and it had to PrettyPrint to a file. How did you implement that functionality? How did you have it go both those destinations? Yeah?
I built a string and then sent it to location needed.
So you built a string inside the PrettyPrinter, and then there was like some method for getting that string and returning it back. Cool. Okay. Any other tactics, strategies for doing that? Yes.
So I added a PrintWriter field to the PrettyPrinter,
Mhm.
which I would pass in the constructor, and if it's a file, it would write to the file. If it's an output stream, it would write to output stream.
Cool. I'm seeing a couple of nods. That what other people did too. Yeah. Another way to do it, and actually my preferred way, and I'll show it to you in a couple of minutes, is to say, well, have the destination be an argument to the constructor, and have the PrettyPrinter, it doesn't care where it's writing to, it just knows that it's writing to something like a PrintWriter, and a PrintWriter has all the print lines. So it just takes care of the formatting. It formats it to like this PrintWriter object, and then the true destination is determined by whoever calls the constructor. That provides you a little bit more flexibility. That way it doesn't always a string, but the string way works. I'm going to do the string way right now, and I'll refactor it to do the other way later because there's two different things I want to show. So pretty.getPrettyText. And I will create, I can just create a method. Cool. Okay. So I'll do that. Okay. So now let's take all of this stuff. So let's see here. That I'm going to keep for later. This I don't care about anymore. Now in my PrettyPrinter.dump, I'm going to just paste that back again. Cool. Okay, and now my string builder. I'm going to promote this to a. Let's see here. I'm going to turn that into a field. I'm going to call it string builder. No, I'm going to call it text. I'm going to call it pretty text. Neat. Pretty text dot oops. Pretty text dot append. Going to do that. I'm going to move this thing up here. Nice. I'm going to format it so it looks pretty. There we go. Okay, cool. And now I'm going to say return text. Pretty text. Yes. Oh, dot toString. Okay. So yeah. So basically now I have a PrettyPrinter object that pretty prints this stuff. Okay. Cool. This should work the same as it did before. Let's reload it. I just changed client-side code, so let's reload it in the browser and see what happens. Ah, failed. Try it again. Let's see what the problem was. Okay, line 8. No source code available. Okay, sorry. It's complaining about my PrettyPrinter. Okay, so GWT found my PrettyPrinter and it's complaining there's no source code available for airline dumper. Did I forget to inherit a required module? Okay. I'm going to explain to you what this means and how the GWT compiler got there. So the GWT compiler, as I mentioned last week or the week before, it starts with the onModuleLoad method of your airline GWT class, and it basically walks the stack. It says, okay, great, what is this code doing? And so it basically analyzes all of your code and tries to find all the code that is being invoked, and says, well, this is all stuff I need to compile into JavaScript. Okay, so I looked at all my methods and finally came across this PrettyPrinter. It's like, oh, okay, because I already looked at things like airline, and oh yeah, airline's cool because, airline's cool because I have a library that says, yeah, airline's cool to be used in GWT. And then it looks at PrettyPrinter. It says, okay, I'm going to look at PrettyPrinter. Okay, PrettyPrinter, yeah, it uses String Builder. String Builder is cool because GWT has a JavaScript version of String Builder. Airline Dumper, and it's complaining that it doesn't know about Airline Dumper. Oh, oops, that's weird. And so at first I thought this was a problem in the student's environment, but no, it turns out it's a problem in my environment. Now, I'm about to go into stuff that isn't important for your project, but stuff that you might want to know about GWT or just this kind of thing in general. So, this is the source code for the project that I'm writing. If I go back to I'm going to switch over to a different IntelliJ project, which has the source code for things like airline dumper. So these are my classes that are used for the course. There is a special file that I have called, where is it? There it is, projects.gwt.xml. And what this does, here I'm going to turn that off. What this does is it specifies, here are all of the classes from like my packages that get exported, I think is the way I would talk about it, for GWT. So anything that begins in abstract, so like your abstract airline and your abstract flight, those get exported. Those are available to GWT. And basically what this says is this is an indicator to the GWT compiler that, hey, it's okay to turn the source code for these guys into JavaScript. That it'll work okay. I don't remember why I have the LRU map is being exported, but like airport names, right? If you want to use airport names on your client side, you can do that. What I don't have, though, is I don't have the dumpers and the parsers. So that's a bummer. So let me go look at my, I've got like airline dumper and airline parser. I've also got things for other projects. So I will just, let's see here. Actually, I don't need parser exception anymore if I have parser. So I think I can just do star parser star. I hope I can. And star dumper star. Okay, this is off of my project. I'm going to then I'm going to quit out of that. I'm going to go over to a different project, into the project's parent, into projects, I think is the name of the thing. I'm going to say Maven. I'm going to say Maven install, which will create the jar file with that magical.gwt.xml file and put it in my local repository. And now I think if I go back, I think that should fix it in my application. We'll see. I hope it does. Now if I reload it, no kidding, my module hasn't been compiled yet. Oh, what do I have to do? Oh, is it waiting for something? Launch default browser. Okay, so it wasn't happy. Oh, that was some weird thing. Compiling airline. It's taking longer anyway. Yay! I fixed it for me. So now I need to fix it for you. So, okay, so that appeared to make it work. Oh, actually, let's just test it out and see. So my airline. Yay, that seemed to work. Okay, so now I think I fixed a bug. And parser exception, yeah, that's okay. Oh, actually, we'll see if that happens later. So, okay, so now I'm going to say, oh, okay, actually, I already, and I created a GitHub issue for this because I'm funny like that. Oh, that's not right. It's the wrong repository. That is not the right repository. Okay. There you go, number 216. So okay, so during at the end of office hours, just to remind myself, because if I don't write these things down, I'll completely forget about them. I mean, not that you're like out of sight, out of mind, but you're out of sight, out of mind, right? I have to write these things. I'm an old man. So number 216 is what I fixed. So address issue number 216 by exporting all of the parser and dumper project classes to GWT. Okay, so I'm going to commit and push that up. Oh, and so this is kind of a cool thing that GitHub does. Since I mentioned issue 216 in that commit message, now when I reload it, oops, now when I reload it, really? Now when I reload, oh, it's supposed to show up there. Is that, oh, you mentioned this just now. That's weird. Oh, I wonder why it isn't showing up. Okay, yeah, it must be a little laggy today. Anyway, yeah.
So I have a airline gwt.xml. Is that where I should put this?
No, I need to fix this because this actually goes in my jar that you use. So what I need to do next is I need to then deploy. So right now I made that change and I did a Maven install, which puts it in my local Maven repository, which is here on my laptop. In order to get it to your machines, I need to do a Maven deploy, which will take that jar file and deploy it off to the bin tray repository with all my other stuff. It's uploading it now. And so now what I'm going to do, so now you guys should be able to see it, but just to projects summer 2017, I'm just going to blow away all the stuff in my local Maven repository. And then I'm going to go back to my project and I'm going to do GWT run again. And I think I should download that jar. Yep, there it was. It's downloading the jar and everything like that. So let's make sure that it still works when it gets the jar from bin tray. I know it's all going by very fast. Here again, you don't need to worry about so much about what I'm doing. You just need to make sure that it works for you. And now I'm reloading. It's compiling. Okay, this is looking good. Nice. Okay. And so then what you guys probably need to do is you need to do a similar RM command. And so I'll go back to that. So you probably need to delete all the artifacts. So in your Maven.m2 directory, you guys remember that sort of like from very early on where you had that settings file, the repository, and then edu pdx410j projects summer 2017. If you just blow this away, then when you rebuild your project again, Maven will download the latest version of it, and you should be on your way. So whoever was talking to me during office hours, who I don't see right now, probably I'm just not looking. Oh, there you are. Yeah. Give that a try. So blow this away and see if that helps for you. Did you post about it on the community? Okay, well, no. Then if anyone's still having problems, post on the community, and I'll give these directions there so it's easier for you to follow because I'm talking quickly. Okay. I have my, so let's see here, go back to the other project. Okay, so I've got my PrettyPrinter, and so I will quick check this in. And I will say, yeah. Okay, so then implement a PrettyPrinter object that works on the client side. Okay. One more thing. Well, I'll spend a couple of minutes refactoring this to so that I don't have to have this get pretty text anymore. And I think it'll be a good lesson about what Java APIs are and are not available on the client side. So the way I'd like to be able to do this is the following. I'd like to say, I want my what? Oh, thanks. These piano lessons every week. Yep. I'd like to be able to say the following. I say I'd like to have a StringWriter equals new StringWriter, and I'd like to send in a new PrintWriter. Oops. Wrapped around that StringWriter. Oops, what doesn't it like? Yeah, there's no constructor like that. Create me a constructor. Poof, we got a constructor. And then I'd like to say sw.toString. So StringWriter and PrintWriter were classes that we learned way back, like in, I don't know, like the third lecture or something, or the third, well, sorry, in the Java I/O lecture, which was like, I don't know, week 2 or something. And there's this writer interface that basically gives you like print line method and print method and stuff, and they write to different destinations. Sorry, writers gives you print, PrintWriter gives you print line. So like StringWriter will write to a buffer in memory, a string buffer, in memory. There are also things like FileWriter, which you probably use, right? Same interface, but different implementation. So basically, what I want to do here is send in a PrintWriter and have it write to it. I don't think this is going to work, however, and I want to. Oops, I want to talk about why. Oh, it definitely blew up. Okay. Failed to execute goal. Error. Okay, it doesn't like StringWriter. Wah, wah. Okay, so it's a Java I/O StringWriter. So those of you who have watched the GWT lecture, GWT StringWriter, huh, yeah, I just looked at this a couple minutes ago. There's something called the JRE emulation. I mentioned this briefly last week, but maybe it'll make a little bit more sense to you this week. Remember how I said all client-side classes eventually get compiled into JavaScript. And there are, your classes like flight and airline and, and PrettyPrinter like we're writing here, are client-side classes. Oh, and of course your airline GWT. Those all get compiled into JavaScript. Well, there are certain classes from certain standard Java classes that can be used in the client side also, and they are listed here on this JRE emulation page. So if I go and look at the classes from the Java I/O package that are supported, unfortunately the readers and writers are not ones of them. Ooh. So, that's kind of unfortunate. However, for our purposes, we can use byte array, output stream, and print stream. Here. So we can change it slightly and I think make it work. And byte array, these are just things that write to byte arrays instead of writing to strings. So we can say byte array output stream, BAOS, equals new byte array output stream. And then instead of a PrintWriter, we're going to have a new print stream. And it's kind of funny for me doing this because it seems like really old school to me, but it works. And let's see here, change first parameter to print stream, and then what do you say? You say new string, and then that takes a bunch of bytes. Yes, and so byte array output stream dot 2-byte array. Give that a try. See if this compiles. Oops. Oops, didn't like the code. I have a. Do I need another? Oh, that compiled. Well, that's no, it didn't. Oh. Wait, what isn't it like? Oh yeah. Wait, it didn't like byte array output stream? Didn't like. Sorry, what? IntelliJ? I don't think I do actually. It looks pretty right. It doesn't like byte array output stream. That's funny because didn't this say the byte array output stream was Java IO byte array output stream? Huh. Oh, wait a second. You can't create a 0 argument. Oh, weird. Oh, oh no, you're right. Byte array output stream. Yeah. So wait, what doesn't it like? What's wrong? No source code Java. Free to inherit a required module. I didn't think I had to inherit a module. Help me, Stack Overflow. Okay. GWT byte array output stream. Yeah, there's the that's right there. What is the problem? So okay. Help me, Stack Overflow from 2013. Probably trying to use blah. The client. This is yeah. But yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Those are completely useless answers. Wow, what doesn't it like? Aw. This is why I usually like test out all my demos before I bring them to you guys.
Seems like it's a version change.
Perhaps.
Are you getting the error that says that the class, the byte array output stream class is not present in the JRE emulation library?
No? I mean, it's saying no source code is available for type blah. Did I forget to inherit a module? I'm using other. Oh, does IO have like a separate module? Not serializable. Definitely not serializable. I completely understand that. Huh. Okay, well, does this say anything about... No. Okay. I don't understand what it's complaining about. Okay. Huh. Well, I might have to come back to that and figure it out later. Luckily, through the magic of revert, we'll just go back to the thing that works. Ta-da. New PrettyPrinter. Yes, we'll go back and fix that too. Actually, I should just revert all of my changes, I'm pretty sure. Right? Don't need IO exception anymore because I'm not. That's pretty useless. Okay. Oops. Yep, don't want any of that stuff anymore. Okay, good. Let's revert all that. Yep. Okay, well, let's pretend those 7 minutes never happened. Okay, so that's how you can get a PrettyPrinter on your client side. And I recommend that you that you have a PrettyPrinter of your own. Okay, so now I'm printing out my. Oops, let's start it up again. So now it should be okay, as long as it. I need to do a clean. Did it pick up the changes? Yep, that's looking a little better. Okay. So my airline. Nice. Okay. So that was the how to start a pretty printer. So now I fixed that bug. Let's look at DateTimeFormat. So right now, if I go look at how I am formatting my flights, I'm just calling toString. What does flight.toString? Oops. What does flight.toString call? Oh, okay. This have the current date and time. Well, okay, that's kind of neat. But it just prints the oops. Just prints like this ugly thing, which maybe isn't what I want. I want to make it pretty. So let's change how we do that then. Let's go back to PrettyPrinter. And now let's see here. I'm just going to make a new method called append. Oh, well, it's a pretty flight. Let's call it prettyify or something. Okay, so now instead of this, let's do the following. Oh, wow. Okay, so let's fix up some other stuff. So let's see here. My airline with 1 flights. Blah, blah. Okay. So now let's put a new line there. Oops. Pretty text.append new line. And then print each one of the flights. And now, oh, let's have some indenting. That's always pretty. That. And then have it see, like, flight. Oops. And then flight.number. Get number. Prettypen dot. Oh, and let's have its own. Put it on a new line. Departing. And then append flight.getDeparture. Oh wait, departure string? No, get source. That's what I called it. Get source. Append new line. And then prettyprint.append at. Oops. And then a dot append, and I'm going to say pretty date, and I'm going to say flight.get departure dot append new line. Okay, so then I'm going to have a pretty date. No, it's going to return a string. Date, and I'm just going to return, for the time being, date.toString. So I'm just doing a bunch of refactoring here in preparation of something else. I'm going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to say arriving, get destination at flight.getArrival. There we go. So now let's reload this, and I don't care. Okay, cool. So blah, 1 flights, flight 42 departing, this at that. Okay, that's cool. So okay, now the text is a little pretty. Now let's focus on this pretty date. So now we want to have a prettier date. So now, okay, we are Java side. So in project 3, what classes did you use to format your dates? Simple date format, date format. Okay, great. Simple date format. Simple date format equals new. Simple date format. Oh, I cannot remember the pattern stuff, so we will go to the internet. And Java simple date format. Oh, it's so much nicer than it used to be 100 years ago. Old Java. Okay, good. So let's see here. And this was, we know it's going to break, right? But anyway, so let's have, yeah, month, day, year. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Little m is minute. Yes, thank you. Actually, we don't need that. And then it's hour, minute, minute. AM, PM is A? Hey, yo, you guys know. Yeah, you guys have obviously fought this. Okay, cool. That's nice. And we'll turn format date. Yay, right? Nope. Okay. And, exception. Wow, this is a lot. That is, yeah, interesting. Oh, that's not very helpful now, is it? What about on the command lines? Is anything more helpful? Here we go. No, that's not very. Wow, that's really weird. So, some stale, we're not. Huh. Or a generator has legitimately stopped creating these types. Oh, that's nice to know. Okay. Well, that's not the exception that I expected. And this is why you test early and often. That's weird. Wow. Airline GWT, so it's obviously new PrettyPrinter. Huh. That's really weird. And if I was so inclined, I would dig into what this whole stack trace means. But I think we've all figured out what we already knew, which is that you can't use simple date format. Okay, so now we need to use DateTimeFormat, which is this thing. Oh yeah, shared and client. Now there are two of them, so let's go figure it out. Oops. Oh, this is a. Okay, that's an error message. So GWT DateTimeFormat. Okay. So this is client. Now someone's saying this one was deprecated. Is that right? Oh, it deprecated. Use DateTimeFormat instead. So there's one called shared. And I think the thing about shared is that it works on both the client and the server side. So that's neat. So, and it looks very similar. So I'm sure they have an example here. But anyway. Okay, so now let's use this. DateTimeFormat. Oops. DateTimeFormat from the shared format equals DateTimeFormat from the shared. Oh, what doesn't it like? Oh, I need to have, what is the, oh, okay, they have, oh, sorry, datetime, there we go, custom date format. So you can say DateTimeFormat.getFormat. Sure. Get format. Okay, nice. And let's see here, I think that looks like it's pretty much the same, right? M, minute, month, day, year, AM, PM. Well, that's cool that they sort of like use the same codes and stuff. So, for the most part. Okay, that's neat. Well, now let's try reloading it and see if it's happier again. Yay, hey, it's happier again. Now if I have my airline. Hey, look at that. Okay, something shorter. Okay, so did we all get what happened there? So I couldn't use simple date format because I'm on the client side. Okay, that's all right. I now can just replace that with DateTimeFormat. So that's what you're meant to do. So you might need to make a small tweak to your PrettyPrinter to get it to work on the client side. So for the people that asked about pretty printing on the client side and DateTimeFormat, did that answer your questions, or is there anything else I can tell you? Okay, that was 48 minutes. Great. Okay, let's commit that. So use a DateTimeFormat to format dates on the client side. Okay, so we're done with that one.
Can you go back to that code again?
Sorry, what?
Where you do the date?
Where I formatted the date in the PrettyPrinter? Let's talk about serialization next. Okay, so something that we didn't cover before GWT is Java object serialization. So I talked about this briefly last time, and I'll use the same example because I'm not very creative. So in Project 4, when you needed to move your flight object, your airline object, from the client to the server, what did you have to do? Or rather, when you had to create your, when you wanted to add a flight to an airline, what did you have to do to get it from the client, from the command line, to the server? Right, you had to post, and what did you post? A bunch of strings, right. But you know what? You're not dealing with a bunch of strings, you're dealing with a flight. Right, there's an object here, right? And the reason we have this object is to represent stuff, and it's got strongly typed, so you know that, like, the departure date is a date, and stuff like that. But when everything's a string, you had to do all this conversion back and forth, and what a pain that was, right? I'm sorry, what a good lesson that was. So there's this thing that's been around in Java since very early on, called serialization, and the whole idea is that you have an object, and your Java programs like to work with objects, right? But sometimes those objects need to leave the virtual machine in various forms. So what serialization does is it basically takes that object and converts it to a binary array, a stream of bytes, that can then leave the Java virtual machine and go someplace else. So like an example that I have, I have an old networking lecture. I say, hey, great, I've got an object over here in this Java process, create a socket connection over to this other Java virtual machine, and take the object, and then call the serialization API that will perform all this magic using the reflection API, to then turn that into a bunch of bytes, send those bytes over the socket to the other virtual machine, and have the other JVM, the other program, read those bytes and turn them back into an object. And so on both sides of the connection, you're just dealing with objects. And that's really convenient, right? Because that way, you don't have to write the code that takes your object, turns into some other format, whether it be a stream of bytes that goes over a socket, or in the case of like your Project 4, a bunch of strings that go over HTTP. It takes care of all of it for you. And so GWT does that same thing, and it's GWT serialization. And so, as we've seen, the objects that go back and forth between the client and the server, like your airline and your flight, are serialized. They are converted into, it ends up being a text format, a character format, and then is sent over the wire to the server, reconstituted into objects, and then your server-side code can deal with those objects, like you might have like an add flight method, or actually I probably have something in my service. Did I call it add flight? I hope I did. Okay, or get airline. Right, get airline returns an airline. So it takes in a string and returns an airline. This actually comes back to the client as a big string representation of that airline, and then GWT framework code will take that string, and ultimately then what gets returned to or delivered to your async callback, get airline. What gets returned to your async callback is an airline object. So that's what serialization is. It's basically all this internal plumbing that allows you to deal with objects on both sides of the client-server divide. Now, serialization, you have an object, and the way serialization works is it just takes that object and then inspects it and finds all of its pieces, parts, and then writes all that to the string. So your airline service, when you create this airline, you add the flight, and then you return the airline. When that airline is returned, there's all this GWT framework on the server side that will take that airline and pick it apart. And what does it find when it picks apart the airlines? Well, it finds it's got a string name, and then it finds that it's got a collection of flights, which is in the wrong point in the program. Sorry, I'm going to move that up a little bit. I recommend that you declare all your fields at the top. And it has a collection of flights. Okay, what's in that collection of flights? Oh, it's an array list. What's in the array list? A bunch of flights. Okay, and so then it walks through this graph of objects. Now it finds each one of your flights. What does a flight have in it? Well, actually, a flight doesn't have any state. That's okay, convenient. But if it did, it would have it would traverse all of that stuff. And so, like if you had a date field, then it would return a date. And actually, let's do that. Let's just introduce a whole bunch of fields so that it's not a variable, field number, and initialize in field declaration. What the heck? And then this will be source, and then this will be departure, field departure, and that's cool. And this will be destination, and then this will be arrival. Yay. Okay. Cool. So now it's got a whole bunch of fields, some of which can be made local variables. So now when it'll serialize this flight object, it'll look at each one of those fields, and then just write it to like this big stream of text, which gets sent back to the client. And then on the client, the JavaScript side, it will take that, read that big string, and turn it into objects, and then deliver it to your async callback. Now, what does it do? It creates the object, populates the fields, and delivers it to your async callback. Okay, what's the first step there? Creating the object. How does it create the object? Well, the agreement is, the contract is that in order for an object to be deserialized, it must have a zero argument constructor. And so that's just the rules. Otherwise, if it had like a constructor that takes a string, how would it know which string to send it, for instance? So it's got to have a zero argument constructor. Okay, fine. Now it can have multiple constructors. You can also have it. I think airline actually does airline. I could make where the hell's airline? Airline. Airline also has a constructor that takes a string. That's cool, great. But serialization doesn't use that constructor. Serialization uses the zero argument constructor. So that's why you need to have a zero argument constructor for your serializable classes, so that they can then be instantiated on the sort of receiving side. That it says, okay, great, call the zero argument constructor, and then it sets the values for all of these fields. And it uses a magical API called reflection that can set the values of private fields, even though the language itself can't. Yes?
Can you initialize variables in there?
Yes. Yes, you can initialize variables in the zero argument constructor, and when the object is deserialized, it'll be populated. Yep. Good question.
Are there security vulnerabilities with that?
Yes, there are security vulnerabilities. So, for instance, if that's a really great question. So, let's say, okay, here's a good example. Let's say you've got a user object. And a user object might have a list of permissions that it's got, right? And so then maybe there's, I don't know, some sort of internal consistency that you need within that object. So like maybe, maybe you have roles and permissions. So like maybe a user who has a role of, well, I mean, okay, canonical example for college students, the D2L, the gradebook application where all your grades are stored. So let's say there's a user for that, and they have different roles. So for instance, there might be a professor role, there might be a student role, there might be a grader role, and each one of these roles are associated with various permissions. So let's say that you've got a user object that has a role and it has permissions associated with it. So here are all the things that it can and can't do. Okay. Now, if that object is created normally through code, the developer can specify, hey, listen, when you've got this role, you only get these permissions. Well, if you create that object some other way, like with reflection, one can imagine you could hack together the right amount of bits, right, to create a valid object that has a student role, but then it gives you permission to change other students' grades or something like that. So yes, so it's important then, just like whenever you read data into your program, that you validate what comes in from the serialized object. So yeah, really good question. And so yeah, it's a vulnerability. So so for instance, we could try to hack into our airline service. Like, what would be a valid an invalid airline? Let's say. So right now we don't really have too much in the way of an invalid airline. But okay, let's say that we have a flight. Now I don't have it implemented, but remember how you need to make sure that your source and destination airports are real airports? Okay, right. So maybe you check that before you go and create the flight. But then if you check it maybe in your client side code. But then, let's say there's an add flight method on your airline service, and that flight gets sent over. What you really should do is in the airline service, revalidate that object that you get because it was created with reflection. Make sure that object is still valid when it comes in. Otherwise, you craft just the right HTTP request that would post off, and actually there are some other things that GWT does to prevent that, but it's possible, that would craft just the right flight that it has an invalid source or destination, and then you've got bad data. So yeah, good thinking.
You're going to test for bad data and reflection?
No, I'm not going to test for that. No. If I did, I would have warned you. This isn't a security class, although all programming should be security sensitive. Thank you for continuing to pay me, Tripwire. Okay. Funny story. So we have this mandatory online security training that Tripwire makes us go through, and this is for everybody in the company. And so the engineers always complain about it because it's like really kind of bone dead stuff about don't write your password on Post-it and put it on your screen and stuff like that. And of course, they all think they know better. And for most of the time, they do. But so that came out, I don't know, day before yesterday or something, and I just had it on in the background while I was reading email. Sorry, and then I passed all the easy multiple choice quizzes, and so I got my little certificate or whatever. And then I've noticed the last couple of days, there have been emails that appear to be phishing attacks. And it's like, I know they're testing us, right? IT is like, okay, we're going to send you something that looks like, upgrade your Office 365 by opening this attachment. It's like, yeah, report that one as spam, as phishing. But I bet someone will click on it, and I bet it goes to a website that says something like, ha, you really still work here? Anyway, yeah. So, but let this be a lesson to you. This stuff is real. This stuff can get This is why everybody was this is why WannaCry was such a thing. When all you got to do is open up the wrong attachment, and all of a sudden your entire hard drive is is encrypted, and you can't get your stuff. And that's really, really bad. So anyway, keep yourself up to date and think twice before doing things like opening attachments and clicking on links. And that's one to grow on. Okay. Okay, so that's how serialization works. So everybody get the serialization? Understand it conceptually? Okay. So there's an example that I want to show. And the example is the following. So this is, I think there were a couple of people that sent me emails about this, and I want to talk to you about it. So airline service impl. Okay. Now, one of the things about an airline is that its flights should be sorted, and sorted, not sorted, but anyway, sorted. And there are a number of ways to do this, and I think as some of you have shared with me, one of the ways that you do that is you'll do something like this. You'll say airline.sort flights. And then you'll send in a new comparator for flights, and then implement methods, yes. Okay, and then we'll add something here. Okay. And then we'll say this.flights.sort. Oh, wait a second. I need to do that correctly. So this dot flights equals collections. What is flights? It's a bunch of collections. Good. Collections dot sort. This dot flights, and then comparator. Oh, it doesn't like that. Collection of flights. What is this? List.sort, fine. Oh, neat. It's got one of those? Okay, that's cool. And to sort, cannot resolve sort. Sorry. Oh, I've got a better idea. Okay, how about we do this instead? So let's do this. So we're going to change this to, instead of being a collection, we're going to have this be a sorted set of flights equals, okay, sorted set, import class, great. And we're not going to, oops, what does it look like now? It's not, oh, it's not serializable? No, what? Huh.
Can you just use a collection
I can, but like,
and then sort the collection?
yeah, but sorted set, this should be serializable. Why is it not? Since when? Well, it's an interface. Okay. All non-transient field. Fine. Yes. Okay, we'll do it that way. Oops. What? Okay. Since when was sorted set not? I'm sorry, not serializable. I'm really confused by that. It ought to be. And what's this thing mean right here? It's white space. Oh, okay, right. Okay, I never took those other changes. Sorry. Right. So then, yeah, let's do that sort flights again. Collections.sort. Oh, it sorts a list? Yeesh. That's weak. Okay, so now I'm going to change this to a list. Good. Collections.sort, flights, using the comparator. Okay, what was it complaining about? I don't trust it. It blew up last time. Oh, because it, anyway. Okay, so now I'm going to do that, and I'm going to compare flight 1 to flight 2, and we're going to say return. Oh, we're just going to we're going to sort by number. Comparators. Ugh. So this is going to be number 1, and then we're going to have number 2. And then, oh wait, is there a math.max? Compare, no, okay. Okay, fine, so if number 1 equals number 2, then return 0, otherwise return number 1 greater than number 2. Oh, number 1, okay, that's the right way to do it, but whatever. That'll work. Okay, and then equals will be flight other equals flight of obj, and then return this dot, not, wait, equals. Wait, that's not right. Oh, that's, okay, overriding equals on a comparator. Never mind, that's not what I thought it was. Okay, so then, oh, yes, that's right, okay. Create this new airline. Okay, so great, now I have, I put in this comparator, and it compares stuff. And so great, now I'm gonna have sorted flights. Not with this example, I'm not. So I reload it. Oh, and it works, oh my god, wait, really? Oh, because I haven't, okay. Yeah, and it throws some, the response could not be deserialized thing. Okay. And what do I get here? Do I get anything helpful here? Yeah, actually, that's not it because it's final. Sorry. That's well, actually, that could have been the problem. I don't like that at all. That's not what that's not the way I wanted you to fail. Fail in a different way. Right. So you can't have final fields that are deserializable because they can't be written to again. That's fine. Okay, that's not what I wanted there. Okay, try this again. Reload your application. Okay, the response could not be deserialized. Someone else had a much nicer exception than that. Yeah, that's all compile time. So it compiles just fine. It's that it can't be. Darn. What I was hoping for. Let's see here. How do I? I was hoping to get a better error message than that. This is in my airline service impl, and I have okay. So how did you get the error that you got? You have an airline. Okay. Ooh, accidentally fixed it. I like that. Okay. Accidentally get this one to break the right way. Okay. So the problem is this. The problem is this anonymous inner class right here. So remember we talked about anonymous inner classes? This is actually like some syntactic sugar that creates another class that is declared inside your airline service impl. So like if you go and
I remember how I heard it.
oh yeah, what would you do to?
In my, I had a set name for the airline.
Uh-huh.
And in the set name, I created a new array list of flights, 7 equal flights.
And it was something about. Did you have an inner class, an anonymous inner class someplace? I thought I saw in your stack trace that you did. Okay. Well, that's what I was hoping to demonstrate. So, anonymous inner classes. Anonymous inner classes are declared inside the middle of a method, right? So I'm saying, hey, I've got this new I'm saying new comparator flight, and then I give an implementation of a method. Basically says, hey, create a class. I don't care what its name is. It's just got to implement comparator flight, and that class ought to implement the compare method as follows. Great. And so then this compiles just fine, but there's a secret. So anonymous inner classes can reference the variables in the method in which they're declared. So I can have, I can say airline.getName right here. And actually, if I do, this thing needs to be final. But anyway, and this is perfectly legal in the language. The way they get away with this, though, is through some interesting. Well, actually, sorry. It's not so much that they can reference the. Not so much that they can reference the variables here. Is that they can reference the fields up here. So let's say I just have a private string, and I'm going to call this airline service version equals 1, 2, 3. So this is like, oh, the version of my application, and let's say for no good reason, I'm then going to add the I'm going to use that in the comparator. I can reference it down here, this flight here. Sorry, this thing here. Oh, this is not a statement. That's true. String s equals. There you go. So I can reference this field here. The way that this works underneath the covers is that when at runtime, when that comparator, that anonymous inner class, is instantiated, a reference to the outer class, this our airline service impl, is passed into it, and that's how we can reference the field. Okay, but what does this mean for serialization? It means that when this comparator is serialized, there's actually a reference back to the airline service impl in the comparator object, which then GWT attempts to serialize. And it's like, wait a second, I can't serialize a remote service servlet. This thing's this thing is a servlet. There's all sorts of stuff in there that you can't serialize, and it blows up. But it doesn't give you a very nice error when it does so. But at least it tells you it couldn't be deserialized. But that's a problem. So what do I do in this case? I can't use an anonymous inner class. I've got a couple of options. I can turn this anonymous inner class into a I can turn it into a nested class. So I can say private class flight comparator implements comparator. Oops, not a constructor. I can say that, and then I can say sort flights with new flight comparator. And so now I don't have an anonymous inner class anymore. I think it'll still, oops. Compile. Cool. Now I think this will still blow up. No, it didn't blow up. Oh, that's neat. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, it didn't blow up. I'm impressed. I wonder why. Probably because compare didn't get. Okay. Anyway, so this will help. I thought I'd have to make it static, but maybe not. Okay. Huh. That's unique. I think the better way to go, though, is to just make your flights comparable, which I mentioned in Project 3 or whatever. So anyway, so if we have problems deserializing objects, it might be because you've got an anonymous inner class that then that magically references a class that can't be deserialized. Okay. So any questions on serialization? Has it? Let's see here, Liz. I think you hit this one, right? Yeah, and were you able to work around it?
I put the code on the client side.
Put the code. Okay, right. That's another way. Yeah, put the sorting on the client side. Yeah, cool. Now that makes sense. Well, actually, yep, that'll work because I mean it'll be there for the PrettyPrinter. I'm kind of surprised. I'm really surprised that it's complaining about having a sorted set inside inside airline. But anyway, okay, cool. Any other questions on serialization? Nope. Time for a break. Let's take a break. Let's take 10 minutes.